The suburbs allowed my parents to create for the first time an orderly world that they had total control over. The rhythms of our yard ran like clockwork. The forsythias were the first to bloom in the spring, then the 3 dogwood trees in the front and the petite red maple tree in the back. Summer brought perfect perfumed roses and sugar snap peas and tomatoes from the vegetable garden, and many empty hours for me to spend alone under the sheltering cave of the forsythia bushes, a space too small for adults. A big chive patch grew all year round. Cardinals and blue jays came regularly to the pine trees. While other families around us hired gardeners and landscapers, my parents tended the yard by themselves. My dad trimmed the hedges and aerated the lawn with a machine that made the rounds among the Chinese families in our area. My mom mowed and watered the lawn and put herself in charge of patrolling its borders. When rabbits began ravaging her vegetable garden, she chased down a marauding baby bunny and trapped it under a pail, oblivious to its mother's screams, and let it go by a nearby creek. "Who should be eating the crunchy snow peas, the rabbit's baby or my baby?" she asked. Hornets stung my allergic dad, so she swaddled herself head to toe in protective outerwear, ripped their nest from its moorings, and threw it out with the evening's trash. Once, when mowing the lawn, she spotted a snake in the grass. My brother and I ran over to see, and he, with a vast storehouse of knowledge gleaned from the World Book, declared it to be a common, harmless garter snake. "Oh, a garden snake," she said, and ran it over with the lawnmower. It was not wise to cross my mother. My mom peppered my childhood with stories of her own childhood so fantastical and vivid, I felt as if I'd experienced them firsthand. She remembered only snapshots from her early childhood in China, the frightening smell from her grandfather's long opium pipe, the grand car that chauffeured her to kindergarten, the huge house built with money from the jade and timber trades. When she was 4, in 1949, a cargo truck smuggled her and her family out of China in the middle of the night. She remembers struggling to keep her younger siblings quiet in the back. They carried nothing of value but the jade jewelry sewn into her mother's belt. Her parents, having never worked a day in their lives, ran a tea house called Airplane in Shuibo, Burma, as they raised 7 children in a 2-room house. Burma seemed even wilder than China. Poisonous snakes slithered free in the streets. Green mangoes grew in her family's backyard and were eaten sour and sprinkled with salt. An annual water splashing festival took over the streets of the city. For high school, my mom went to a Chinese boarding school an overnight train ride away in Rangoon. When she was a senior, a mysterious man called her, saying he was a friend of her uncle's in America and asking her to meet him at a hotel. A nice hotel. Her uncle had left to study in America in the 1930s before she was born, and when war broke out in China, his father had told him not to return. He had lost contact with his family in China and had heard only that they had fled to Burma, so when he found out his friend was going to Rangoon on business, he asked him to track them down. The man gave my mom her uncle's address in New York, as well as a gift from him, a small Gruen watch. She wrote him a letter, and several months later she flew to New York alone to live with his family. On cold winter mornings, while waiting for the city bus to take her to Queens College, she would buy a single bagel from the shop by the bus stop and hold it in her hands to warm them. Her parents and 6 younger siblings didn't immigrate to the States until a decade later. Her stories opened up amazing, faraway worlds that seemed a part of mine, even if they couldn't have been more distant. Many other Chinese immigrants had also moved to the D.C. area, and it allowed my parents to administer to my brother and me a nearly lethal dose of Chinese culture. As regular as church, we attended Chinese school every Sunday, from the first week of kindergarten to the last week of high school, learning Mandarin Chinese. Potomac Chinese School was held in the rented classrooms of Herbert Hoover Junior High School, with my mom and other parents working as teachers, doling out homework, tests, and report cards, and ranking us as they had been ranked growing up. On one test, I wrote I-H blank T blank, C-H blank N blank S blank, S-C-H blank blank L. Wheel of Fortune style, and the teacher filled in the missing vowels. I also performed in a Chinese dancing troupe whose signature piece, performed at the Kennedy Center and the National Theater, as well as at a random crab house off the interstate,